Welcome to Hidden Reality, where we uncover the truths buried beneath the surface. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining us today, because in this explainer, we're tearing into three entirely true, heavily documented historical events that literally defy the laws of mathematics, probability, and honestly, maybe even reality itself. We're not talking about rumors or urban legends here. These are absolute facts that are going to make you question everything you thought you knew about how our world actually works.
So let's dive right into this. Do you believe in coincidences, or is reality just broken? We need to set the stage right off the bat. We aren't treating these anomalies as mere accidents or, a stroke of bad luck. We're treating them as serious case files that might just be the hard proof we need to show we're experiencing a literal glitch in the matrix. We are hunting for that hidden architecture, those invisible threads pulling the strings behind the scenes.
Right, let's crack open case file number 1, Buenos Aires. The date is October 21st, 1988.
Our investigation takes us straight into the Caballito neighborhood. Now, picture this. It is a densely populated, incredibly chaotic area, just absolute frenzy. And right in the middle of this, a man named Valentino is sitting outside at a street cafe, just trying to catch a moment of peace. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, Valentino sees a flash of something brown plummeting from a 13th floor balcony right across the street. A split second later, an older woman on the sidewalk just starts screaming hysterically. Valentino looks over, and there's a completely motionless body on the ground right next to her. But what exactly was that falling brown object? Well, we're going to deliberately hold on to that question for a second, because the sheer chaos on this street, it was only just beginning.
The whole sequence of events escalates so rapidly. Step 1, you have that sudden, devastating impact on the sidewalk, and the horrifying realization hits the street that the woman struck by the object is dead. Step 2, a massive panic crowd immediately swarms the area, completely blocking off the street. And Valentino? He's watching all of this unfold from his cafe table, and he starts spiraling into a severe panic attack. His pulse is racing, his stomach is tied in knots. Then we hit step 3. The ambulance finally arrives, its sirens wailing, cutting through the panic, and the crowd slowly starts to part. But you see, the ambulance didn't stop the horror. Not even close. As the crowd parts to let those paramedics through, a curious middle-aged woman decides to cross the street, craning her neck to see what all the commotion is about. And in her distraction, she steps directly into the path of an oncoming city bus. She's killed instantly. Valentino, who has now witnessed a second horrific death in a matter of minutes, completely loses it. His heart is beating out of his chest, he's dizzy with shock, staggering around the cafe begging for help. But nobody is paying him any attention because of the absolute carnage happening across the street. Look at this grim sequence. It lays out the sheer impossibility of the situation. Number 1, a pedestrian is struck from above. Number 2, a bystander is killed by a city bus while investigating the first incident. And number 3, Valentino, utterly overwhelmed by this cascading trauma, collapses onto the cafe floor. Tragically, he suffers a fatal heart attack and actually dies on the way to the hospital. 3 people dead in rapid succession. But it all comes back to that initial trigger. What started this devastating chain reaction?
And this is where the bizarre truth perfectly illustrates the unpredictable madness of this case. That falling brown object, the trigger for this entire disaster, it was a poodle named Khaki. Khaki had been playfully chasing a ball and accidentally ran straight off that 13th floor balcony. This single, innocent action initiated a deadly mechanical chain reaction resulting in 4 total fatalities. It's an event so statistically impossible that we at Hidden Reality felt absolutely compelled to investigate it. I mean, how do 4 completely disconnected lives end in the exact same minute just because a dog dropped a ball?
That brings us to case file number 2, Seal Road, also known as the replicating crash.
Okay, it's 3 a.m. on Christmas Eve 1967 in Phoenix City, Alabama. A guy named Sammy Brown Jr., who was intensely drunk and completely unlicensed, is rocketing down Seal Road at a blistering 100 miles per hour, desperately trying to outrun a police cruiser. At 100 miles an hour, Sammy spots a much slower car ahead in his lane. To avoid a rear-end collision, he panics. He swerves violently into oncoming traffic, totally misjudges it, and clips the slower car. Both vehicles spin completely out of control in this deafening crunch of metal. But miraculously, Sammy walks away completely unhurt. And the 65-year-old driver he hit? Amazingly, he survives the brutal impact too.
Incredibly, Sammy faced almost no consequences for that near-fatal wreck. Which really brings us to a terrifying question. Can lightning strike the exact same place twice? Fast forward a year and a half. It's April 13th, 1969. Sammy is drunk again. He is driving the exact same car, still has no license. He's speeding down the exact same stretch of Seal Road. And once again, he comes up on a slow-moving car and decides to make a wild swerve into the oncoming lane.
Now, what's really interesting here is how these two timelines perfectly mirror each other. It's like an impossible reflection. But this time, in 1969, as Sammy swerves into oncoming traffic, he is met by blinding headlights. He crashes head-on into another vehicle. The impact is absolutely catastrophic. Both cars are completely obliterated, just reduced to twisted, unrecognizable chunks of metal. And yet, defying literally all laws of physics, Sammy staggers out of his destroyed car alive, once again.
But here's the terrifying climax that caught the attention of Hidden Reality. Sammy staggers over to check on the other driver. It was the exact same man he had hit a year and a half prior, a 65-year-old named Francis Patterson. Think about that. The exact same road, the exact same drunk driver, the same car, the same victim. And get this, Francis didn't even live in Phoenix City. He was just passing through both times. It is a horrifying, impossible loop. Tragically, in the second iteration of the crash, Francis did not survive.
All right, let's look at case file number 3, the 50-year echo, a lifelong coincidence.
This one begins in 1805 in Orléans, France. A 13-year-old boy named Émile Deschamps is sitting at a remarkably boring adult dinner party with his aunt. Suddenly, the hostess brings out something highly unusual for the time, a rare, piping hot English dessert wrapped in cloth, literally emitting steam. Émile has no idea what it is. Then a rambling stranger at the table, a Monsieur de Fortescue, leans over and practically insists Émile try this treat called plum pudding. Émile takes a bite, realizes it's the most delicious dessert he's ever had, and then just goes on with his life, quickly forgetting the man and the pudding entirely.
But let's see how this builds across the decades. 10 years pass. It's 1815. Émile is now a 23-year-old writer living in Paris, some 80 miles away. He wanders into a completely random cafe for lunch and, to his absolute shock, he sees plum pudding on the menu. He orders it immediately, but the waiters tells him they actually just gave the very last slice to the gentleman sitting in the corner. She calls out to ask if the man wouldn't mind sharing. Émile looks over, and the man eating that last slice of plum pudding is Monsieur de Fortescue, the exact same stranger from 10 years ago.
Seriously, what are the odds of that? Well, what happens on the third time? We jump forward an incredible 38 years to 1853. Émile is now in his 60s, a highly famous, celebrated writer. He's at a high society tea party in Paris when, you guessed it, a platter of plum pudding is brought out. Émile chuckles, and he proceeds to tell the entire table the story of the only 2 times he's ever had this dessert in his life, noting that Monsieur de Fortescue was there both times. He jokingly predicts out loud to his friends, "We better be on the lookout. The monsieur is bound to show up."
And then comes the staggering climax. Just as Émile raises the fork to his mouth to take his first bite of plum pudding in 38 years, the doors open. An elderly man who had been invited to a completely different party on the same floor mistakenly wanders into the wrong room. It is Monsieur de Fortescue. The two men lock eyes in total shock for the third and final time in their lives, a lifelong coincidence tethered completely to one specific dessert.
Which brings us to Section 4, the reflection. Analyzing the impossible.
Émile actually documented his 50-year account in his memoirs. And for the last 2 centuries, scientists and probability experts have dissected it endlessly. And you know what they found? Absolutely nothing. As the quote points out, there's got to be something else going on here. This can't just be a coincidence. At Hidden Reality, we do not just accept surface-level answers. When coincidences of this magnitude occur, whether it's an unbelievable multi-fatality chain reaction triggered by a falling poodle, an identical high-speed crash looping in time, or a 50-year dessert anomaly, they force us to actively look for deeper structural flaws in reality itself.
So, the crucial point here is that Émile's exact impossible account actually became the foundation for a famous philosophical concept pioneered by the legendary psychologist Carl Jung. It's called synchronicity. The theory suggests that these bizarre, overlapping events are not random at all. Instead, they're deeply connected to a much larger, unknown meaning or purpose. It points directly to a hidden, interconnected architecture that hums right beneath our everyday lives.
Which leaves us with a deeply chilling thought to ponder. Are we living in a glitch? I really want to challenge you, right now, to question your own daily interactions.
When you inexplicably bump into a stranger from your past, when a random delay entirely changes your route, or when the same obscure detail pops up twice in a week, are these truly random accidents? Or are you simply walking down meticulously designed paths within a hidden system you can't even see?
This mystery has been decoded by Hidden Reality. Subscribe to Hidden Reality for more deep,